also going to talk about how to get pool-sized checks. Anybody here ever heard me talk about getting a pool-sized check? I don't mean enough cash to fill your pool, although I guess you could do that. I got that phrase about 4 or 5 years ago. My wife and I moved into a brand new house. It was not a custom house, but we built it during the middle of the recession. By the way, if you have money when everybody else doesn't, you can kind of get whatever you want. And so the builder had built these houses, and they had got contracts for 8 of these really jumbo-sized houses. Right? I still, even to this day, I still get up every morning and pray and say, God, are you sure you want me to live here? Because this house is awfully big. But I got kids, and I got 2 older, ailing mother and mother-in-law, and so having a big house with an elevator in it kind of makes sense today, even though it was kind of a crazy thing to do about 10 years ago now when we started this journey. So 2007, 2008, actually 2005, 2006, my wife starts talking about a bigger house. David, our 3rd child, had been born, and he's now about 4, 5, 6 years old. And we got a couple of cats, and I'm talking about getting a dog, and Dave wants to get a dog. And so I did the little tap dance that guys like to do when their wives start talking about getting a bigger house. Y'all know that tap dance? Say, honey, why don't we replace the carpet? Why don't we put in new shelving? Why don't we, change the cabinets, right? Anything you can do besides getting that big old mortgage payment. Y'all know what I mean? So we did the little tap dance for a while. And then one day, my wife and I, we don't do it as much as we used to, we should, but we used to take these long walks on Sunday. And so one particular Sunday, I know why we don't take the walks anymore, because our church moved to church time. We used to meet at 2 o'clock, now we have our own building at church, so we meet at 11, so that's why we don't do the walks. So I'm like, why don't we do the walks anymore? But we used to take these long walks in the morning. And one day we were taking a walk through the neighborhood, and we noticed there's a new road that they had extended the road that had used to dead end in our neighborhood. And as we walked through this road, it kind of meandered around, went out to Church Road, and we're like, wow, this is like a nice development. This is a nice piece of property, even before they built the first house. And then they built the first house about 6 months later, and it was like colossal. And then they built the second house, and not only was it a big house, but there was pretty good spacing. Like, okay, this is shaping up to be like a really nice neighborhood. So long story short, we're walking through, and they just had cut a new road up to the top of the hill. We like, one day we're going to have a house up here at the top of the hill. That was like 2005. So went to see the developer, told them I wanted the house at the top of the hill. They said, sorry, sir, but we're not selling those right now. And all the ones at the bottom of the hill are selling like hotcakes. This is 2005. If you want to get in on this, you better go ahead and do it now. And I'm a big believer in doing it now, by the way. Except I wanted that lot at the top of the hill. So I played Joe Cool, and I said, well, tell you what, when you do start building the house at the top of the hill, call me. Didn't think too much of it, and then a year later, I get the phone call. Mr. Ragland, are you still interested? Because we're ready to start building houses at the top of the hill. I said, absolutely. So we picked the house, we picked the lot, and then we were looking at the houses they had built and walked through them. Then we looked at the model that they had, and I said, this house is okay, but it's not perfect. If I could change a couple of things, I could make this house perfect. Starting with the fact that the foyer really needed to be about 4 foot wider, because I had one of these, y'all, we don't have any Gone with the Wind fans in here, do we? They'll admit it? Okay, we know you're in here, right? But there's a scene in Gone with the Wind. This beautiful staircase that kind of comes down like that. Y'all seen that staircase before? So they had put this beautiful staircase in one of their houses, but they didn't have quite enough room, so it was a little scrunched up. So instead of being like this peach, like a Georgia peach, it was more like a pear. Like it was sort of squeezed a little bit. I said, well, gee, if I could just redesign this house, I would move stuff out to give you enough room in that foyer. And I'd sort of move 2 feet this way, 2 feet this way, and open it up a little bit so you could have that beautiful staircase coming down. And they had the library to the house was at the back of the house, and I'm like, no, I'd want to move that to the front of the house, because every once in a while I'm going to have a Steve Harvey moment. Y'all know what I mean by that? It's like, you want to come see me? Okay, come in, get out, right? Steve Harvey, y'all didn't hear about Steve Harvey's memo? Okay. I'll tell that joke next month when everybody's had a chance to read a memo, right? So it'd be nice to have like the library at the front of the house, so that if you ever do work from home or have people come over, you're not bringing them all the way through your house. Just sort of like, come on in, let's sit and talk, and okay, thank you very much, and be about your business. Steve Harvey moment. So in any event, I had sort of put all this stuff on a piece of paper and some ideas, and just as they said to us, hey, we're ready for you to sign a contract to start building your house, they had built this brand new model. They didn't even build a model, they just built this brand new house that they were testing. And I sort of snuck inside one day and talked to the contractor. Because I said, well, this house is a little bit bigger than the other ones you're building. He says, yeah, this is a new model that they're bringing down from New Jersey and they're testing it out. And I said, well, gee, I looked at the foyer and I saw the staircase. I said, that's exactly the way the staircase should look. And I looked at the room that was towards the front. I said, what's this? He said, well, that's going to be the library, and it's got a double. I said, that's exactly where the library should be. So long story short, I went back to the builder and said, I want you to build me that same house at the top of the hill. And they said, well, sorry, Mr. Ragland, we can't build that house at the top of the hill. I said, why not? They said, because that house is too big for that particular lot. If you want that house, you're going to have to pick a different lot. I talked to my wife, we're like, no. We had walked this lot, we had prayed over this lot. This is the lot God wanted us to have, right? This is when they were whole for it. No, this is the lot. So I said, well, how come we can't build that house on that lot? They said, well, we don't really know, but the city of Bowie dictates, and you just have to talk to somebody in the city of Bowie, and just, we're not willing to do that. I said, well, I know some people in the city of Bowie. So I said, okay. So I called up the city manager and I said, can I meet with you? He said, about what? I said, I want to build this house in this new subdivision on a certain line. He says, well, you can meet with me if you want, but you don't need to meet with me. You need to meet with the director of public works because he makes those decisions. So I got a buddy of mine who's a civil engineer, and I got a set of plans, and I went over to meet with the director of public works, and I said, I want to build this house on this lot. And he said, what's the problem? I said, well, the builder says I can't do it without your permission. He said, let me take a look. He says, oh, I see what the problem is. They have this thing called a rain garden. Now, the development where we live, there's no sidewalks, there's no gutters, there's no what they call storm retention under the ground. Every house has this little sort of 9-foot by 5-foot rain garden where the rain goes in and then it slowly creeps out. And on our particular lot, they had drawn the rain garden this way. And so I went to go see the director of public works, and he looked at it, he said, oh, I see what the problem is. The house is too long, it's too close to the rain garden. I said, well, I got my engineer here, can we work out a solution? He looked at it and said, you don't need to work out a solution. I'm like, oh God, he's not gonna let me build my house. I done told my wife we're gonna have this meeting, we're gonna work it all out. And now he's telling me he's not gonna let me do it. He says, you don't have to work out a solution with your engineer. I said, why? He said, because I just did. I said, what's that? He said, we're gonna turn the rain garden from here to here. Done. I said, you can tell me I can build my house here? He says, yeah. I said, can I get it in writing? He said, give me the plans. And he wrote out, I get permission to build the house as long as you turn the rain garden from here to here, and signed it. I went back to the builder and I said, okay, no problem. We can build a house because I talked to City Bowie. They're like, what? Of course, then they're like, who's this joker? Because we don't even know who to call. And this guy went over there the next week and got the guy to sign the plan saying it's okay. They're like, okay, Mr. Ragland, we'll let you build your house on that lot. Now this is now 2007. Anybody remember 2007? What was going on in the housing market in 2007? Hello? So the bottom line is every single week they're offering a new deal to anybody who buys one of their houses. All this stuff that on paper we're having to pay for, putting in an elevator. Well, at one point my wife's like, I don't want any carpet, I want hardwood. They're like, no problem, ma'am. We'll put down the carpet, and as soon as you go to settlement, you can rip out the carpet and put down hardwood floor. And I'm like, no, you didn't understand what my wife said. She said, we don't want carpet at all. We want to start with a hardwood floor. Well, sir, this is not a custom house. It's okay. 2 days later, Mr. Ragland, what kind of hardwood floor would you like? Come on over. And then I was really dangerous because they had given me a set of plans. I'm like, well, we want to move this wall over here, and this thing they got is a closet. I want that to be my home office so I don't have to actually leave the house to go to work. And I started moving stuff around and closing stuff up and building stuff out. And I took it back to them and said, okay, I want you to do it like this. And they're like, Mr. Ragland, this is not a custom house. I said, well, just take a look at it. 2 days later, Mr. Ragland, come on over here and see what we plan to do with your design. And so even though technically it's not a custom house, I can honestly say it's my house. Because a lot of the stuff that happened in it happened because we made it happen. So why am I telling you this story? So we built the house, moved in, market's crashing and burning. They said we were supposed to pay one price. They had a mortgage company that was going to make the mortgage for us. Their mortgage company went out of business. They had to hire a new mortgage company, which required them to have an appraisal. They called my wife up and said, because we put the house in a trust, and the trust, my wife is the trustee, so all the interactions are with her as far as the closing. but I'm the one who's out there telling the contractor what to do and when he's doing the job right and when he's doing the job wrong. At one point, I made him rip all the brick off the front of the house and redo all the brickwork. They were not happy with me about that. But here's the problem. The brickwork was done terribly. And so I went to Home Depot and got what's called a plumb line. How many people here know what a plumb line is? It's a piece of string and a weight. And if you tack that up on brickwork, what's supposed to happen? Straight. And what's the brickwork supposed to be? Well, guess what? The brickwork was. So either the brickwork was like this or the plumb line was like this, but either way. And so I went out there at 5 o'clock one night and put plumb lines along the whole front of the house when they're in the middle of telling me that the brickwork is perfect. And I called up the senior vice president and said, please meet me at the house tomorrow morning at 7:30. By the way, everybody in the construction business gets up early. Don't be talking about meet me at 9 o'clock, right? Meet me at 7:30, because I knew he'd already be on his way to the office or in the office. So he drives up, he gets out of the car, he takes one look at all these plumb lines, he says, got it, gets back in the car. The next day, guess what they were doing? Ripping all the brickwork off the front of the house. At which point I got an apology letter and an explanation that, well, the subcontractor who does the brickwork is laid up and he had his brother come out there supervising the crew. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then like, what else can we do for you? Well, there are a couple of other things I'd like for you to do. So long story short, Market's going to hell in a handbasket. We're supposed to pay one price for the house. Their mortgage company goes bankrupt. They now got to get an appraisal out there. Appraiser calls up my wife and says, I'm coming out to do the appraisal so you can go to settlement next week. She said, great. We've been waiting for the phone call. He says, well, when can I meet with you? He says, well, what you really want to do is meet with my husband because my husband's in the real estate business. In fact, he's actually pulled a couple of comps. The appraiser says, really? He says, oh yeah, my husband's been a licensed real estate agent for going on 20-some years now, and he has his own brokerage firm, and he's actually pulled some comps. He said, I'd be curious to talk to him. So I'm sorry, I got that part wrong. He said, well, what did your husband say the value is? And I'm standing in her office and she's having this conversation. And I wrote a number on a piece of paper and slid it to her. A week later, the appraisal came back. Anybody want to guess what the number was? What I wrote down on a piece of paper. Now, why am I even bothering to tell that story? Two reasons. I promised you I was going to talk to you today about what? Pool-size checks. So where does that come from? 10 years ago, we bought a new house, nice house, did not come with a pool. Moved into a neighborhood that does not have a community center, does not have a clubhouse, does not have a pool. And so the first 2 years that we were in the new house, the conversation was, when am I going to get the new pool? And mine was, honey, there's a pool down the street. We kept the old house, we still members of that? No. So I did a deal about 3-4 years after we had moved into the house. And that one deal took me almost exactly 12 hours. It was not rehabbing. It was not even wholesaling, because I had nothing at risk. I simply acted as a bird dog. Everybody here know what a bird dog is? And everybody in my apprentice class better have a hand up. That question was on the exam at least 3 times. A bird dog. Does a bird dog have any money at risk? No. Does a bird dog actually enter into a contract? No. Does a bird dog have any real downside at all? No. Because if the answer is yes to any of those questions, they're not a bird dog, they're what? A wholesaler. That is the defining difference between a bird dog and a wholesaler. Bird dog has nothing at risk. The average bird dog fee for the average investor doing single-family house deals is about how much? About $1,000. About $500 to $1,000. If you're in a hot market, that's a very robust market, that's an expensive market like DC, that might go up to a couple of thousand. But on average, it's about $1,000. So now some of you guys are thinking, what the heck did Sherman do to get a $70,000 bird dog fee? Anybody want to know the answer to that question?